So hello YouTubers, welcome to my channel and my latest video about my Honda Goldwing. This has got road footage in it, but before I get on to that I just wanted to introduce it. I started off in Inverness about 2 weeks ago. I rode down from Inverness to Lockerbie, my usual overnight stop in Lockerbie. And then next morning rode down from Lockerbie to Leamington Spa, where I spent the afternoon doing some work, and then my final leg of the downward trip was from Leamington Spa down to Buckinghamshire. On the Thursday and the Friday of that week I commuted into work, which is from Buckinghamshire to Basingstoke, a round trip of 120 miles. And then on the Saturday, which is where the ride footage comes from, I rode from Buckinghamshire to Leamington Spa and then back again, a round trip of about, I'd say, 140 miles. The Monday and Tuesday of the following week, I again commuted to work and back, and this was on the hottest days of the year, so I rode about 38 degrees of temperature on the Monday and 40 degrees of temperature on the Tuesday. I rode past Heathrow, which recorded the hottest temperature in the country. And that commute, the two-way commute, takes in the A41, it takes in the M25, and it takes in the M3, some of the busiest roads in Europe, and I got to find out just how good this bike was at filtering and commuting. So on my last day, on the Wednesday, I rode from Buckinghamshire down to Southampton, and then from Southampton up to Dumfries, and then on Thursday morning Dumfries up to Inverness, and that's where I finished the trip. Total miles, a smidge under 2,000 miles, and I did some fun riding in country lanes, I did a huge amount of motorway riding, I did commuting to and from work, so this to me represented a fantastic test of the bike. And I hope you enjoy the ride footage. I finally got sorted out and got to work, and I've got some commentary on that about why I think this is the best bike in the world.
I have been struggling to film on the Goldwing with camera positions, microphone positions, new cameras and old cameras, hence why there hasn't been any riding footage. So we're out of the Highlands on the Goldwing. We're now in rural Buckinghamshire. This is the Buckinghamshire and Hertfordshire borders. Just ridden through Tring, which is in Hertfordshire, going through back roads to Aylesbury, which is Buckinghamshire, and actually going to head up to Buckingham through there, and then Cotswold run up to Leamington Spa to visit my dad and my mum. So hi Dad, just for you. So you'll see the title of this video is Goldwing, is this the best bike in the world? And I suppose many people will say no. So first thing I want to just say is, or talk about, is prejudice. And then a few years ago, and I'm probably talking 20 years ago, I was at the bike show at the NEC in Birmingham and wandered onto the Harley stand. Must have been a quiet day because there was somebody there to talk to me, and this somebody asked me if I wanted to test drive a Harley, to which I replied, no, I didn't. And he said, well, what have you got to lose? And I said, well, I ride a Honda Fireblade. So these things aren't really what appeals to me. which he repeated this question: so what have you got to lose? Come down, try one, prove you don't like them. So I thought, well, what have I got to lose? Why not? They're offering me half a day's ride on any Harley. So a few weeks later I went down to Wars in Chelsea on my Fireblade, walked in the showroom, the guy said, would you want to ride? So I pointed at what I now know to be a Fat Boy. And he got me a Fat Boy out, and I took it out for a couple of hours riding around south of London, and actually had a really good time. Really enjoyed it, and it transformed my view that actually in fact there was more to motorcycling than sports bikes. And although I didn't buy a Harley then, later on I did, and in fact I've had 3. Similar thing then for the Goldwing. I've never wanted a Goldwing, never thought about a Goldwing. Yeah, I know about them and I've seen them, but they've always been, to me, too big and too much really of a one-trick pony. But this new version that came out in 2018, slightly smaller than the previous one, I thought looked pretty good. And then in 2021, when I was thinking of changing, actually it was seeing a video about baggers, 44 teeth dirty baggers. It was seeing those that made me actually think about changing my bike. I had an RT at the time, which I really didn't like, and I'd seen this video and thought, hey, maybe I could try a Goldwing. Cost comes into that equation, and as many of you will know, having seen my channel, I then went out and bought the brand new model of the BMW RT. That didn't really go as planned, and so in probably the end of March I decided that I was most likely going to change, and I came down to England in April, stopped off or detoured to Blackpool, tried out a Goldwing, really liked it, did a deal, and end of May I picked this one up. So I've done my RT Goldwing comparison, which was an office video. I've done a first impressions, which is me walking around the bike. And this one really is, well, it's pretty much another 1,000 miles on, because it's the, I'm currently at 1,974 miles. This week I've ridden 857.8 miles so far. So today I will clock over the 2,000 mile mark. So since I filmed that, it was only about 2 weeks ago. Since I filmed that, I've done another 1,000 miles, and this has been a different 1,000 miles because it was Monday I rode from Inverness down to Lockerbie, Tuesday from Lockerbie down to Buckinghamshire, Wednesday I didn't ride, Thursday and Friday I have commuted to my office in Basingstoke from Buckinghamshire, and so in doing so have tested the bike out as, is it actually useful as a commuter? Because I've been riding round some country lanes, but a lot of motorway, M25, thick traffic, and I've ridden through very, very thick traffic. And Monday I might even try and film M25 and stick it in. I'll see how I get on. So it now means it sort of completes the initial test of the bike, and I've done some nice riding around the Highlands, the fast roads around the Highlands. I've done average mileage, I've done motorway, I've done filtering. So lots of different things that I use a bike for. And And one of the reasons I have a big bike like a Goldwing or an RT is because I have to come down to England. And while sometimes I use a car, I often want to use the bike because back into the commuting to Basingstoke, it's a 60-mile commute around some of the busiest roads in Europe. And it's not so much that I hate traffic, but I do find it very draining to be stuck. And so I like to be able to filter and get back at a reasonable time. Hence I've always used bikes to commute. Which then brings me back to my title of, is this the best bike in the world? And so the short answer for me is yes. After 2,000 miles and 900 miles this week, I think this is the best bike I've ever had. And I've had a few. I mean, I've had 4 BMWs, a variety of Hondas, Yamaha XJ 1300, Ducatis, or Ducati Supersport S, 3 Harleys. So I've had a lot of different bikes, and you know, I've had the adventure bikes, sports bikes, naked bikes. And every bike, including this one, is a compromise in some way. No bike does it all. Or no bike does it all excellently. So this one being a fairly big ship is never going to be as sharp and agile down the country lanes as Ducati Supersport or the 848 I test rode a little while ago. But when you take into account what you use a bike for, so what I use the bike for, which is having fun down the country lanes or the country roads of the Highlands and always exploring around there, to motorwaying it down to England, commuting to work. Then you come back and say, well, for me, is this the best bike in the world? And then back into prejudice. And I have to admit it. So the Harleys, I followed the prevailing thought and the jokes that all Harleys are slow and rubbish and whatever. When I rode one and I found out actually that's not as true as maybe the haters would like us to believe. Well, actually Harleys are great fun. Maybe the riding is different, but they're still great fun. Look at that for a sight, eh? Beautiful. And then I've owned 3. And the last one, which is my street glide, I think I absolutely loved that bike. Did 18,000 miles, went round over Europe, and I sold it because I wasn't using it. And in a lot of ways, this bike is very much like that Street Glide Custom. It's more of a, I'd call it a grand gentleman's cruiser rather than an out-and-out touring bike. had also, old man's bikes and slightly odd people owned Goldwings. Not for me. And then when you ride them and you find out actually wow, this is heavy. It's such a good handling bike. Not like a sports bike, but you can still have fun. I have fun on it, and hopefully you can see from this video. While I'm talking, I'm not going that fast. I'm really enjoying riding. I'm having a great day. So although it's not the best at country lanes, it's still fun down country lanes. You have to ride it in a slightly different way. But if you respect its size and weight and handling, it's huge fun. And in some ways bikes this size are more fun because actually you have no pressure to go fast or be a riding god. You just get on with riding and enjoying the scenery. That's all you do. Was one of the reasons I enjoyed the street glide so much, and probably why I rode it all over the place, all sorts of different roads, including taking it to the Alps, and it was great fun going over the Italian Alps. Had a lovely time doing that. 185 there, that's cheaper. Let's go on to why I think this is one of the most underestimated bikes out there. Now it is expensive. This one I've paid £25,000 for. But a lot of the bikes are catching up. Your top end Ducatis are 20,000, BMWs 21 to 20. So there's a lot catching up. If you want a top end premium bike, you're looking at this sort of money. And there are cheaper. And for that you expect, or I expect, a lot. So that's number one, reliability. Compared to all the BMWs I've had, this has not had a single issue to worry me about. It has a surety and confidence about it that it's just not going to go wrong. Japanese engineering, Japanese reputation, whatever you want to call it. Everything it does, it just does well. Sometimes in a fairly understated way. Everything on it works. Some of the tech maybe not the most cutting edge, but there's nothing wrong with that because it works. And for me that's important. If you followed my story and look at some of my other videos, you'll see on my RT that was not the case, and in fact riding becomes fairly stressful because you're waiting for the next thing to go wrong. By the time I'd done 2,000 miles on the BMW, I'd had a lot of problems, including one major mechanical failure. This has had nothing go wrong at all. You can also see its evolution from a bike I think in the 1970s to where it is now. The evolution of the design, the evolution of the concept. In that Honda have a recipe that works. Actually, I think this bike has a recipe that works for a much broader range of riders than maybe the last iteration of the Goldwing. The second thing I'm going to talk about then is versatility. We used to have things called sports tourers, and to some degree we still have. They've by and large been replaced by adventure bikes. But for a bike to be truly useful, it needs to have a degree of versatility. And this does everything. It'll shift on at a fair old pace. It's fun on the fast A roads. It's actually pretty good on the tighter B roads. Just a lot slower. It's an outstanding motorway cruiser. It's the cliche of riding on a sofa. And I've had no discomfort in this near 1,000 miles I've ridden this week. Even my legs have been fairly comfortable, which is where I tend to suffer. Riding on the motorway in thick traffic, so filtering, it does that with aplomb. It's a very, very good filterer. Now, I'm an experienced filterer. I've been doing it for 40 years. And the rule is if your mirrors will go through, the bike will go through. And while it's a big old beast, it's actually not quite as wide as it seems. In fact, I think it's narrower than quite a few of the adventure bikes I've ridden. So it goes through gaps. And the gearbox, the DCT gearbox, adds to that versatility. In that you're not riding a clutch. It's always in the right gear. Its low speed manners are outstanding, to the point where I'm having to change my riding style a little bit, because I tend to paddle a bit at low speed, put my legs out for balance. Actually doing that on this bike upsets it a bit. You've got to keep your feet up when you're riding very slow until you're ready to stop, really. This DCT gearbox, I think it's one of the best things I've come across. Nice to see people getting their dogs out early. It's going to be very hot today, and bare paws and hot pavements are not a good mixture. So what I found is this bike does pretty much anything I want it to do in a great way. Add on to that a great stereo and radio, Bluetooth. I don't do phone calls on bikes, but I have options to listen to Spotify. I have an iPad fitted into the left pannier. On long, boring journeys, I can listen to music the whole way. It's easy to change on the go. It's easy to mute. I have it muted right now. This is Winslow. I admire a man who can have a fluffy dog. Probably because I'm a man with a fluffy dog, but a man that doesn't require a killer walking by his side is a man with confidence. Discuss. Oh, I can't see this, but this is just crossing over HS2. controversial. Winslow station at for HS2. High speed 2 if you're somewhere else, high speed railway. Taking years and years and years to go through planning, and now it's being built. So it has great versatility, far more than I think as a bike it gets any credit for. Next one, I'm going to call it curb appeal, and this one surprised me because in my video, my sort of first impressions walk around video, I did say it's a fairly ugly looking bike because of the engine, and that was a little bit unfair. Actually, I don't think it's ugly. I love how it looks, and the look of the engine's growing on me, especially with the red stripes. But of course I don't really spend much time looking at it because I'm sat on it. So but this is not about me, this is about other people. And this bike is extraordinary in that it attracts people to look at it and then want to come and talk to me. Well, I'm a fairly social guy, so I don't mind, but I was parked at a motorway service station, and a guy gets out of his very nice and big and expensive BMW and stops and stares at my bike, and then comes in, and as he walked past, I was sat outside, said, I'm not into bikes, but that's a lovely bike. Is it a Goldwing? Yes, it is. He said, I thought so. That's a great bike. Thank you, is what you say. I was parked outside my mum's house, two neighbours knocked on the door. And my mum said it was a bit like the old days, could Jim come out to play? They want to talk about the bike. I've been parking bikes out there since I was 17. People don't come knocking on the door. The Harley they did, people like the Harley. But this seems to grab people's attention more. And then at work, two of the engineers came out and filmed me as I rode away. I wanted to talk, I was in a rush at the time, but everyone thinks it just seems to grab attention and people love it. And if you're not used to it, as I'm not, I've been riding bikes for years, and people tend not to talk too much about. Certainly come up to me and talk about them. If you've got a mild Triumph, I'd get a few of the old boys come and tell about their bikes, but you know, people say that a lot. It happened once or twice. But this does attract attention, so it does seem to have curb appeal, if that's your thing. Some of the things that I complained about, size of the panniers, yeah, that hasn't improved, they are small. But I put an 80 litre dry bag on the back. It's not brilliant for bungee points, but I worked it out and got some rock straps on, and the 80 litre bag got all my kit for the week, the 10 days I'm down here. Which the top box would not have got that amount of stuff in. I still would have had to have an extra bag. But I can get all my tech in the Panniers. And when I rode down on Monday, because I had an overnight stop, all I did was pack an overnight bag. That fitted the Pannier fine. All my tech was all locked away, work laptop and things, that went in another pannier, went in fine. I mean, you can't put too much in, but I have a bag full of all that stuff, went in without a problem. If I was going to say to Honda, how do you make it better? You can keep the same panniers, but make them top opening, so you can drop stuff in rather than side opening, especially when you haven't got a main stand. I've had a few comments about getting main stands fitted, seems to be a straightforward thing, but I think at the moment I can live without it, but we'll see. The other thing I complained about was the economy. And according to my trip computer, I'm getting 39 miles to the gallon. and I could do about 180 miles. Well, that is improving with miles. So now I'm getting over 200 miles to a tank full. The trip computer's now showing just over 40, I think. That's taken a while to catch up with the reality that I'm getting a much greater level of economy than I was, and range. And again, some comments from other owners who say it just gets better as you put miles on. I filled up in Lockerbie, then I rode 200 miles down to Stafford, and I filled up at Stafford. I had 30 miles showing as range, so that's as much as I want from a bike. I want a bike to do 200 miles of range, because on a long trip you don't want to be constantly stopping. And my indicated mileage when I fill up is now 175, and that's because the average fuel consumption is a bit lower. Yeah, it's saying 39 still, but it quickly goes up, and especially once you get below halfway, half the tank is normally showing about 100 miles, 100 miles to go, but then it seems to go up superbly. So fuel economy is improving, and I reckon on a steady run I'm easily getting 45 plus. So that little fly in the ointment is becoming much less of an issue as the bike gets miles and gets run in.
So you've seen the ride footage, see it came to a very dramatic halt because I was looking for petrol. I didn't buy petrol in Buckingham because it was way too expensive. People in Buckingham, you're being ripped off. So what I didn't get to do was a final video. I didn't do any videos of commuting. I just couldn't be bothered to set the cameras up and do work, and really commuting is dangerous at the best of times, and I decided to focus on getting through the traffic. What I can say is there are a few bikes I have ridden that are better at filtering, and I did a lot of filtering from very tight traffic, and it was, I'd say, absolutely fantastic. And that DCT gearbox, as I said in the ride footage, my God, for filtering, bloody excellent. So overall, for me, this is the best bike in the world. You might disagree, but for me, it's absolutely the best bike in the world. It does everything I want it to do without any fuss or any drama. Everything works the way it should work. It has enough imperfections to make it interesting, but overall I think this bike is the best bike in the world. So I look forward to comments, agreements or disagreements. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.